Electoral stakeholders have tasked the National Assembly to speed up the passage of the National Electoral Offences Commission Bill, expected to help tackle impunity during polls. The event, organized by the Electoral Hub, saw the attendance of key electoral stakeholders in Nigeria, including the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), Professor Mahmood Yakubu, who was represented by the head of Litigation and Prosecution Department of the Commission, Alhassan Umar. Participants at the event, which hosted a roundtable discussion on electoral offences in Abuja, say available electoral laws empower INEC to prosecute electoral offenders, but does not give it the power to arrest and investigate those arrested.
Now you have 62 specific categorized electoral offences, and there will be many of these because that impunity is still there, and our politicians will go into the next elections with that mindset of that they can do whatever and get away with it. So I think it's fundamental that we now focus attention to say, look, how can we ensure that the 2023 general elections will be remarkably different in terms of apprehension and the prosecution of electoral offences. If we are able to begin to do something remarkable in this regard, obviously we will begin to help to sanitize the electoral process and moving forward to continue to improve on the integrity of elections in our country.
Over time, the challenge has been the capacity to prosecute all these offenses, so that the challenge is not in inadequacy of the laws, but the inability to ensure effective prosecution. And that is why on the part of INEC, the clamor has been that because of the core mandate that is given to INEC by the Constitution, a body ought to be saddled with the responsibility of prosecuting electoral offenses. And most stakeholders also corroborate with INEC on this, for establishment of Electoral Offences Commission. I think it is gratifying to note that the government set up the Nnamani's Electoral Reform Committee, and the government seems to have accepted the recommendations of the committee for the establishment of Electoral Offences Committee. And that is why there is a bill now pending before the National Assembly. I think what needs to be done at this point in time is to sort of put pressure on the National Assembly to ensure early passage of the bill, just as it has commendably done regarding the Electoral Act 2022.
We really want to encourage and also advise more like, especially all the arms of government, the executive, legislature, and judiciary, especially judiciary, to kind of partner with all the agencies and groups that have been in the forefront of this. Because, it will enable us move. In fact, for us, we would actually be saying, judiciary, please step up to the plate. There are a lot of issues that we look up to the judiciary to help us properly situate in terms of the decisions they make. If we look at some of the past, there are a lot of issues in place that we don't need to. The Imo State is one, Imo State governorship election, the issues of cross-carpeting and so on. There are so many of them that are also important to IPAC, and we really hope that these agencies, these arms of government, will be able to partner with, like INEC, like IPAC. INEC is doing quite a lot. There are some of these things that, like the chairman has said, we are looking forward to seeing if the government can create like these electoral offences, special tribunals that will deal with some of these electoral offences, so that it will take, not only will it take off a lot of uh, stress from the judiciary, from their usual work, but it will give some concentration to these issues.
The whole idea that people commit, because they're big man, this big man reason thing, you commit electoral offense and you get away with it. This also contribute to the whole idea or the whole issues of voter apathy, actually. The idea that people can do things and get away with whatever they do to truncate democracy, to truncate the electoral process that impacts on the integrity and legitimacy of our elections. So it's important for us to start having this conversation towards having an awesome and holistic reform, be it whether it's about establishing the Electoral Offences Commission to address investigation and prosecution, or to deepen more civil society engagement in ensuring that we tackle this problem of electoral offences. Because without tackling this problem of electoral offences, we're going to keep having problems with our electoral process. One of the key electoral offenses actually comes from violence, and electoral violence bedevils us like the it's a major problem, and it affects the whole idea of participation, inclusion in the electoral process. PWDs, for example, one of the things the sites why they don't come out to vote is the idea that they are in the polling unit, for example, a blind person, and there's violence. How do you run? Where do you run to? Or you are in a wheelchair and there's violence. How do you run? Where do you run to? So, I mean, it's very critical to have this conversation, particularly because all reforms so far, we're starting with Babalakin reports, have argued for the need to clarify or delineate the 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 delineate a possibility for effective prosecution, because INEC is already overburdened with so much. So asking INEC, who is not a legal entity per se in terms of having being like maybe a minister of justice and has no powers to investigate, to be the one to also prosecute electoral offences, is really overburdening them. If they have to do that, given the volume of offences, how then would they have time to conduct an election?